Now, Christianity is by far not the only religion or the only belief system that is facing reform or challenge to its established ways in this early modern era. Um, so, entering this time period, um, most of Asia has been kind of carved into, relatively stable areas religiously. Islam continues to dominate Central Asia. Hindu beliefs still dominate India. A blending of Confucius, Taoism, and Buddhism still dominates East Asia, right? But in each of these regions, there are going to be movements within those belief systems that challenge the established way of things, right? So, first, within the world of Islam, you have the rise of what's known as Wahhabism. And Wahhabism is a reform movement that begins in the Arabian Peninsula. And this is essentially kind of a purity movement within Islam. Wahhabists dislike the diffusion and the syncretism of Islam with native traditions in places like Swahili, East Africa, or with the Mughals in India. And the founder of the movement, Muhammad ibn al Wahhab, um, creates Wahhabism as a reaction to that multiculturalism and specifically to the religious tolerance of the Ottoman Empire. He believes that the Ottomans, by accommodating other religions and by allowing Islam to syncretize and blend with these other religious traditions, that they are leading people astray from the true nature of Islam. Um, that by taking on aspects of other cultures, that the pure form of monotheism that was founded by Muhammad has been diluted. And things like worshiping saints or other religious figures, or in some cases, even, worshiping idols, allowing for the image of Muhammad to be transcribed in places like Persia or in Mughal India, is a heresy against the original form of Islam that Muhammad brought to Arabia. And so the Wahhabists violently react to this blending of Islam, and they fight within Arabia and actually establish a decent size state for the restoration of their pure ideas about Islam. Very conservative, wanting essentially a return to the early days of the caliphate. And they're supported by a wealthy, powerful family in Arabia known as the Sauds, who are going to eventually gain more and more political power thanks to their support of Wahhabism, and this is going to become the ruling family of modern day Saudi Arabia. Um, Essentially, Wahhabists see the followers of these blended branches of Islam, the Shia, the Sufis, essentially any form of Islam that is not the original form of Islam, um, even other Sunnis, as heretics. And they set out to either reform and require these other Muslims to repent or be killed. So this is a pretty dramatic, pretty conservative branch within Islam. But at the same time, just like with the Protestant Reformation, Wahhabist Islam also has a political and angle. It is political angle. Cannot speak. A political angle to it, as well as one of their other goals is to replace Arabs to prominence within the Islamic world that they lost after the destruction of the caliphate by the Mongols. Now, in Eastern Asia and in China specifically, there is a movement that is born probably towards the end of the post-classical era, but it really begins to take shape during the early modern era, known as Neo-Confucianism. And Neo-Confucianism um, develops as a synthesis of both Confucian, Buddhist, and Taoist teachings. And now we've talked a lot in this class about the kind of endless battle between these three systems of belief for, kind of dominance within China and within East Asia. And essentially, what Neo Confucianism does is it tries to take the Confucian view of the world and inform it with the spiritual aspects of Buddhism and Taoism. Now, with Neo-Confucianism, there is no single founder. There's not a prophet. There's not a single reformer like there is with Martin Luther. And there's also no single school of thought or denomination within Neo-Confucianism. So what Neo-Confucianism does is it takes a more humanist approach to understanding. Under the original teachings of Confucianism, the idea was that society must be stratified. It must be very hierarchical, and only certain members of society are worthy of Confucian teachings, and that their education in Confucian teachings is what made them worthy of power and rule over the other social classes, this idea of a scholar gentry. Well, Neo-Confucianism challenges this and says that knowledge and understanding is built into all people from birth, and that all of us can attain understanding and knowledge of the world and of the universe through what's called self-realization, right? That we embrace this, what they call innate knowing, that if you unify your heart and your mind, that you can develop an understanding of the universe and of your place in it. And Neo-Confucianism believes that the best way to attain this is through meditation, what they call quiet sitting. And this clearly shows the influence of not only Taoism, but especially Zen Buddhism on this Neo Confucian belief system. Now, at the same time, though, Neo Confucianism does not fully embrace Buddhism and Taoism. There is no belief in this other world outside of the material world. There is no belief in the Atman or the eternal soul. There's no belief that attaining enlightenment or understanding is going to allow you to reconnect to some greater world soul, the way that Buddhism believes. Neo-Confucianists believe that enlightenment was its own purpose, that in order that attaining enlightenment would provide better understanding of how to serve the greater good of the world, and how you as an individual fit into this Confucian idea of this stratified society that provides order and regulates, relationships between superiors and inferiors. Now, India goes through some religious challenges as well during this time, probably not as dramatic as in the Islamic or the Christian world, but there is religious reactionism in India as well. Remember, during this time period, the majority of India is being ruled by the Mughal Empire. So you have a strict, highly stratified society where the positions of power are held by Muslims, but the majority of the population is Hindu. And two movements in particular develop out of this. The first and the earliest is known as Bhakti Hinduism. Bhakti is somewhat similar to the Lutheran idea of Christianity. It is a very individualistic and very personal form of Hinduism. And the followers of Bhakti seek a direct connection with the Hindu gods without the mediation of the priestly or Vishnu class. Or I'm sorry, not the Vishnu class. Vishnu is a god. I misspoke. The Brahmin class. Now, the methods in which followers of Bhakti connect with the gods are as numerous as there are followers. Connection with the gods can happen through song, through dance, through prayer, through meditation, through whatever method the person best believes is going to bring them closer to God. And this is a major challenge to the caste system within India because it breaks down the importance of that top Brahma class whose sole, focus is to facilitate the Hindu belief system, to to facilitate prayer and other religious ceremonies. And bhakti becomes very popular among the lower classes because it's very socially welcoming. It ignores the caste system. It embraces women in it as well, which gives them a greater role in religious life. Now, an offshoot of bhakti is what's known as Sikhism. Man, again, can't speak. Sorry. But Sikhism defines itself as a separate religion from Hinduism, and it blends ideas from mainly Islam and Hinduism, but also from Christianity and some Buddhism as well. Um, so Sikhism believes in the one, okay, truth as the ultimate God. But essentially, they also believe that religion interferes and restricts the ways in which we can seek the one, the ways that we can seek the truth, God, universal understanding. They believe that the methods and the doctrine of established religion, whether it be Islam or Christianity or Hinduism, are holding us back from being able to attain true understanding of the one God. And they stress what they see as a universal brotherhood, that all men and all women should be included in this search for the one God. And that in order to allow for that to happen, you have to forego your ego, you have to forego your worldly needs, you have to forego your desires for power and revenge and all of these negative impulses, and that you should devote yourself to what they call righteous action. And essentially, they believed that no one religion holds the absolute truth, that no one religion has a monopoly on how to correctly have a relationship with God and discover God, and that all religions are essentially stumbling around in the dark, and that we as a people and as a human race will continue to stumble in the dark until we set aside all of the things that divide the religions, the doctrine and the theology and the belief systems, and my prophet is greater than your prophet, and all of these different ideas that delineate the major religions of the world. And that once we are able to set aside those distinctions and unify everyone in the search for ultimate truth, that that's when we'll be able to actually attain.